happy Sunday morning live post-election. And yeah, I know we're going to have all these different court cases regarding Mr. Trump trying to keep his place. But I think the country has moved on, and either way, it's not going to matter who's in office. Somebody is going to be disenfranchised and pissed off. So accept the inevitable, no matter what. Okay, if Trump was in office, then you'd have people tearing shit up and you know what, and then more stoking a division, which we know it was the intention. And then the other side of it, we have Biden in office, and well, we're going to see a lot of changes, a lot of changes. And yes, there's going to be a major conversion of energy from one industry to another. Excuse me, clearing my throat. So you're going to have to figure out how to adapt. Get out of the industries that are going to be in the target of the new administration. Okay, so look at your indicators in your environment and figure out where the money's going to be, and go towards where you can make money. And that's really all I could say. Adapt. All right. So, anyways, so yeah, I think after yesterday and trying to figure out mathematical equations, and I'm looking up covalent bonds and atoms and valence electrons and like orbital energy with nucleus and electrons and neutrons and protons. and and I'm like trying to find a very simplistic way to explain stuff, which I know there is, and I was trying to find something. I don't know. I mean, I just was like googling like what's a covalent bond? What is a valence, electron, and is an odd amount of electrons cause more power than an even? And maybe there's probably definitely some kind of, there is some evidence to substantiate that. I mean, because salt has like 11 amount of electrons and 11 amount of protons, and sugar has like 24. And so 11 is odd and 24 is even. And so maybe, salt or sugar is a little bit more stable than salt, because salt is definitely an energizing force. And this is also behind the reasoning of why you balance out your salt and sugar, why jelly juice is so important that you do jelly juice. Yes, it does create energy, and it will help people excuse me, reduce the excess energy in their body by causing like processes to convert energy to repair damage. And in that process of repair and damage, when it's utilizing the nutrients, it's using the energy. So while it's using energy to repair the damage, it needs to have that. And some of you who are obese or have issues will have enough energy for the salt and the healing process to do its thing. It's those that are underweight, okay, that need to eat like a very balanced diet with sugar and other carbs to not only fuel your hold on not only to fuel your cells, but to give your body, yeah, the energy to be able to give your body substance. So when the salt is doing its thing, you have now something that the body can use to repair the damage and build the protein cells, so where you can regenerate cells type of thing. And so that's why there's a balance of sugar and salt. So when you're avoiding sugar and salt simultaneously, you're basically destroying your life. Hold on, it's cold outside. Woo. All right. So anyways, yes, it's early morning. All right. So anyways, so I was looking up different mathematical type of stuff, equations, and there actually is a chemical process for negentropy. What is negentropy? It's negative entropy. What is entropy? Entropy is the disassembling, it's the dispersal, it's the breaking up of a matrix. It's a disintegration process. It is when it's like a life form loses its heat. It is second law thermodynamics. Okay? And there is that third law. Excuse me. Wow. All right, let me look up the third law. Oops. Nope, that's not what I want. Third law of thermo. The third law of thermodynamics states that the entropy of a system at absolute zero is a well-defined constant. So this is an entropy. The body's really trying to get rid of something right now. All right. So the third law of thermodynamics states that the entropy of a system at absolute zero is a well-defined constant. This is because a system at zero temperature exists in its ground state, so that its entropy is determined only by the degeneracy of the ground state. So S equals K log W. It has to do with like Kelvin and something like that. Okay. Because the first law is energy can never be created or destroyed. It can only be converted. The second law is when entropy is wasted energy. It's irreversible. However, you can reverse it, but it's irreversible if you're in the state of entropy. But when you're in the state of negentropy, that's the different. But I'll tell you that in a minute. In simple terms, the third law states that the entropy of a perfect crystal of a pure substance approaches zero as the temperature approaches zero. The alignment of a perfect crystal leaves no ambiguity as to the location and orientation of each part of the crystal. Okay. Okay. It approaches zero. What does? Let me see. Okay. The entropy of a perfect crystal is zero with the temperature of the crystal is to equal to absolute zero Kelvin, according to Purdue University. The crystal must be perfect or else there'll be some inherent disorder. So, and then why is the third law so important? Let me see. The third law of thermodynamics has two important consequences. It defines the sign of entropy of any substance of a temperature above absolute zero positive, and it provides a fixed reference point that allows us to measure the absolute entropy of any substance at any temperature. Okay. There has to be a frame of reference, a reference point. Okay. So, all right. So there's the third law that at above absolute zero as a positive. Okay, so zero is that fixed reference point for us to measure the absolute entropy of any substance. Okay, that's absolute death. Zero. So like 0 and 1, 0 is off, which means you're dead. 1 is on, and that's in binary code. Okay, so you can see now the connection between the third law of thermodynamics and binary code. When things are switched on and off, and you have 0 as off and 1 as on, and those can be like intermittent throughout, hormones as well as computer coding and all that. So you see all this stuff is connected if you kind of understand how everything translates together. Okay, so that's good to know. So then I was looking up, then I'm like, okay, so then I just kind of gave up and was like, okay, I was tired yesterday, and my brain was working really hard trying to figure out this whole mathematical crap, trying to explain mathematics and negentropy or entropy, and how math can give you the same the same story, but said in a formula. But there is formulas, but people wouldn't understand it, and it's just like I would be like one of those that if I only understood my concepts through formulas, it would go over everybody's head. So I have to speak in a very English allegorical story type of conceptual knowledge, so that way I'm not making everybody just turn this off, which some people do anyways, because it does go over their head, and I understand that. So, but whatever. So then I Googled today, for some reason, I don't know why, I just woke up this morning after after just being after being asleep. I was like, all right, what am I gonna talk about on Sunday? But I really have to get this information in my head, because it's got to be, my book has got to be meaty. It can't just be like superficially going over stuff, but I don't want to be too meaty where it's too detailed, where you're just like, okay, this is so stupid, which it's going to get like that in some places, because I really want to explain something in thoroughness. But other things, I don't need to go down the rabbit holes and start spitting out formulas that people really have no frame of reference to do. So I've got to find that balance, and let me tell you, it's not easy, because I want to make sure I give people who are very, very detailed enough info for them to go and research it and substantiate it in a different way that's easier for them. But my book is going to be dropping seeds everywhere. So anyway, so I found this is, wikia.org, Negentropy. And this is evolution. Okay? So in 1943, it's so interesting, 1943, it's when my dad was born, right? Erwin Schrödinger used the concept of negative entropy in his popular science book, What is Life? See, life is evolution. I've been saying this for freaking years. The actual term negentropy was later coined by Léon Brillouin in 1974. That's when I was born. Albert Szent-Györgyi proposed replacing the term negentropy with syntropy. I like negentropy better. I wonder why syntropy. I'm going to Google syntropy and see what it gives me. But I don't think I would have found, well, I don't know. Ha ha. Okay. Syntropy. Interesting. I like the word negentropy. But see, they're using syntropy, unlocking the value of untapped scientific data. Syntropy provides a trust-based environment that simplifies and accelerates collaboration-driven insights in the fight to solve cancer. Syntropy aims to usher in a new era of scientific discovery by enabling researchers or institutions and see, and when you're using something like syntropy and you're getting rid of an old word has has a total background, okay? And why they changed it to syntropy? Well, there's definitely baggage and an intention behind that. The occasional tendency of two diseases coalescing into one, syntropy. See, so that's where the context, syntropy, because they're going to use this word syntropy. So when syntropy in relation to entropy, in relation to cancer, is when the occasional tendency of two diseases to coalesce into one, and a person who's like, oh my God, I don't want something syntropic. They're going to look up the word syntropy and they're going to be like, oh, and that's how people are going to be misinformed about the word negentropy. So I'm going to use the word negentropy and not even use the word syntropy because that context is going to mess with people. See, that's why words change over time, because there's a context behind it. The original meaning, probably the original meaning of the Bible. Okay, there was a Bible that was written, and then people kept rewriting it, adding different words, adding different contexts, adding different intentions to get a specific foundation, a specific context, a specific background, enough background to change people's ways of thinking. So you always have to be careful of even reading different Bibles, because you don't know if they're going to take something like negentropy and change it to syntropy, and it has a whole different meaning. Holy crap, right there should tell you how the English language can be used as a propaganda tool to redirect minds into different ways of thought. This is crazy. Wow, right there. So, hold on. So Schrödinger introduced the concept when explaining that a living system exports entropy in order to maintain its own entropy at a low level. By using the term negentropy, he could express this fact in a more positive way. A living system imports negentropy and stores it. It's taking in energy and stores it. So actually, negentropy is a misconception derived from entropy. Negentropy is a loss of entropy in a system by having more entropy flowing out than in. So entropy is when more energy is flowing out, or more entropy, more of the dispersal of your energy flowing out than in. Just like, leaky gut, when you have so much poop that's clogging up your ability to absorb, and you also have all these different antibodies that you're holding in, punching holes, and you're not regenerating at the level that you should because you're not absorbing. That's when you're losing energy. You're losing your life force. And then when you go and have your little sex all the time, you are also losing your life force, unless you are replacing that energy that you're losing on a continuous equal basis. That's why you have to really watch those that are very amorous, because it means that they are on a death trajectory, and the more they have SCX, the more they're going to lose their life force. Okay, so if you know somebody in that world, you know, and they're not doing J juice, be very, very conservative so you don't destroy them by their own volition, you know, because you don't want to suck, you don't want to take up somebody else's life force that's not replacing it correctly. So you got to be balanced, and even those in the relationships that you're with those that are on the death trajectory, because they will find every way to try to create a baby with not really creating a baby. And in essence, they're going to be losing their life force simultaneously as the body tries to take that energy and convert it into release. Okay, so actually, negentropy is a misconception derived from entropy. Okay, we already got that. Okay, so actually, negentropy is a misconception derived from entropy. Negentropy is a loss of energy in a system by having more entropy flowing out than in. An example in thermodynamics where entropy is heat divided by temperature is the flow of energy from hot to cold via another medium. Okay, so example in thermodynamics, when entropy is heat divided by temperature, is the flow of energy from hot to cold via another medium. The medium will be in an energetic equilibrium, that is, emit as much energy as it receives. Yes, emission occurs at lower temperature than emission. That means that more entropy is emitted than it's receiving, resulting in a net loss of entropy in the transisting medium. However, the net total amount of entropy rises as the temperature by which the heat conducted is now lower than before. So, an example in thermodynamics is when entropy is heat divided by temperature. It's a flow of energy from hot to cold via another medium. From hot to cold. So it goes outside when it's hot and in a cold climate. The medium will be in an energetic equilibrium that emits as much energy as it's receiving. So to cool it down, so for it to be cooling down, it emits as much energy as it's receiving. Yes, the emission occurs at lower temperatures than emission. That means that more entropy is emitted. So it's losing heat, right, from hot to cold, resulting in net loss of entropy in the net loss of entropy. However, the total amount of entropy rises because it's losing heat as the temperature by which the heat is conducted is now lower than before. Okay, well, that seems logical. It is in a note to What is Life, Schrödinger explains the usage of this term. Let me say first that if I had been catering for them, physicists, alone, I should have let the discussion turn on free energy instead. It is more familiar notion in this context, but this highly technical term, because it is free energy, salt is free energy, but this highly technical term seemed linguistically too near to energy for making the average reader alive to the contrast between two things. Erwin Schrödinger. So he understood his audience. He understood how people were going to make certain correlations, and so he had to keep things in a compartmentalized way, so you understood it in your own world when it comes to life versus trying to power your generator or something, right? So let me say first, this is what he's saying, that if I had been catering for them, physicists, alone, I should have let the discussion turn on free energy instead. It is more familiar notion in this context, but this highly technical term seemed linguistically too near to energy for making the average reader alive to the contrast between the two things. Erwin Schrödinger. So further, Schrödinger acknowledges the ambiguity of his term use, but is explicitly in defining it. Hence, the awkward expression negative entropy can be replaced by a better one, entropy taken with negative sign is itself a measure of order. So it's minusing the death. It's adding to life when you think about it, right? When you put a negative to a death, how do you negative a death? Well, it has to turn into a positive. You can't take away death because death is death. 0 is 0. You can't take 0 from 0. So if you put a negative to a 0, it must then add to life, okay? So thus the device by which, let me look up, can you do a negative 0? What is negative 0? I know those of you who are all mathematicians all be like, oh, I know that. Can you do negative 0? Hold on. Okay. Well, yeah, you can. I mean, well, no, hold on. At temperature below absolute zero, atoms at negative absolute temperature are the hottest systems in the world. So there you go. It adds heat. Isn't that crazy? Holy shit. At temperature below absolute zero, atoms at negative absolute zero are the hottest systems in the world. So on the absolute temperature scale, which is used by physicists, and it's also called the Kelvin scale, it is not possible to go below zero, at least not in the sense of getting colder than 0 Kelvin. So it has to get then hot. I mean, imagine when you're out there in negative temperatures, like negative 50. I mean, you're cold, but then you're hot because your body. It's you're so fucking cold that it seems like you're burning up, but you're freezing. So I'm just gonna. This is from Science Daily. A temperature. Hold on. Because this is some interesting stuff. Well, yes, John. Negative derives from negate, so negative. Yep. That's why I will not use the term syntropy, because that will have a whole other context that I don't want people to be falling down in. And if they want to use syntropy, then it'll be in a different context. But I'm using absolute negentropy, because this makes sense in what we're doing. So hence, all right. Okay, so hence the awkward expression negative entropy can be replaced by a better one. Entropy taken with negative sign is itself a measure of order. Thus the device by which an organism maintains itself stationary at a fairly high level of orderliness. And then equals low level of entropy really consists in continually sucking orderliness from the environment. What is life? Page 79. Okay, so the natural phenomenon which Schrödinger recognized has been seen by others. In his 1996 Investigations series, Stuart A. Kaufman describes essentially the same natural phenomenon in different terms. First, he defines autonomous agents, which includes living organisms, and this is where humans can be asexual. This is where negentropy can actually happen in a human with the jelly juice. Okay, we're some amazing crap here. It is precisely because E. coli is a living cell, a collectively reproducing organization of matter, energy, and process capable of self-maintenance, reproduction, and evolution, that we unhesitantly think of the E. coli cell as an autonomous agent. So humans can be autonomous if they stop losing their fucking energy. In order to be an autonomous agent, a system must carry out work cycles by virtue of which maintains and amplifies itself. Thus, work cycles require that the devices carry out work in the plus direction. At exact equilibrium, no work cycles can be canceled out. Hence, no agency exists. And this is Kaufman, 1996. But rather than sucking orderliness to escape equilibrium, as Schrödinger described the phenomena, Kaufman describes autonomous agents, living organisms, as ratcheting away from equilibrium. Okay. The fact that autonomous agents are necessarily displaced from equilibrium and perform work cycles means that the agent can and do ratchet themselves further from equilibrium. Okay. Through controversy exists regarding the terminology, the phenomena being observed has been described by multiple sources and it can be experimented, tested, and measured. Further away from equilibrium. Well, yeah, when you are in the evolution, you're not. I mean, you're going through when you're going to another evolution, when you're going through self-maintenance and evolution, just really at a macro level. Okay, you won't have equilibrium because you're in that evolution, because in and of itself it's a work cycle. You're going through symptoms. So why do they say symptoms? It's work cycles. So the fact that the autonomous agents are necessarily displaced from equilibrium and perform work cycles means that agents can and do ratchet themselves further from equilibrium. Right. So what are they trying to say? Well, the symptoms. Oh God, and that's why you haven't seen humanity evolve. Really. That they always seem to die in the end, because they don't want to interrupt equilibrium. Now let's go look up what equilibrium is so we can be on the same page. Because everybody has assumptions. You got to look up words. Equilibrium in thermodynamics. Equilibrium thermodynamics is a systematic study of transformation of matter and energy in systems in terms of a concept called thermodynamic equilibrium. The word equilibrium implies a state of balance. In an equilibrium state, that potentials or driving forces within the system at an exact balance. So right there, when people feel symptoms, they feel imbalanced, but they're miscalculating their symptoms and they're not applying the right chemistry to their body. So when they feel imbalanced, when they're going through this self work cycles are symptoms. Holy shit, here we go. I gotta write this down. Work cycles are symptoms. And when you mistaken those work cycles as something as a negative, then you are going to induce entropy. And you will never see negentropy in your body, mind, and spirit. And I have all this paper, but none that is blank. That ought to tell you something. I write so much crap down. And then I don't know. So, symptoms equals work cycles. And yes, it ratchets away from equilibrium. So when you're doing the jelly juice and you are going through your negentropy, which is basically potentially getting into indefinite life, you're going to feel imbalanced. Okay? And you can't mistake that for anything but the body going through its evolutionary processes. So hold on, let me write this down. So that's it on that. So yeah, hold on, I'm going to write this. Hold on. Work cycles. Work cycles are symptoms. All right. Give me one. Oh, really? Why can't I? Oh, I know why. And then work cycles. Because this is how I'm going to have to substantiate my work and why symptoms happen. Equal. Right, if you don't endure the well, of course. If you don't, because remember, this is the reverse process. You have entropy, which is basically dying. Negentropy is living, but you have to retrace your steps in the same, almost in the same order. That was my video the other day. For you to get back to equilibrium, you have to go back through time, like core samples, and revisit everything that caused you to be out of equilibrium to begin with. So that's why the whole thing with pain in the jelly juice and pain in the allopathic holistic world equals either indefinite life or indefinite death. Okay? Equilibrium is just a stable state. You could be stably dead or you could be stably alive. So no matter what, you're going to have to deal with symptoms when you're dying, as well as when you are reproducing at the micro level. You're going to have to, and then once you're in that state of equilibrium, you hope that your environment stays stable, right? But then if there's another new virus in the environment, you're going to have to upgrade, which means that you're going to have to feel then the body going through its work cycles. I love that word, work cycle. I'm telling you, the English language can be very deceptive, because it has different contexts to lead you down a certain road, so you don't get the connection between it all. And this is why I will not use the word syntropy in my new book. I know it exists. Maybe you look at this video and be like, yeah, she doesn't understand syntropy. But that has a whole different context of like, oh, diseases are coalescing. And that will then, people will be like, what the hell? So negentropy and entropy will have an imbalance of equilibrium. You'll be ratcheting away from equilibrium because you are either evolving or devolving. So you either go on an indefinite life or indefinite death. and you have to apply the right. So yeah, you'll either be in negentropy or entropy, but it's still, you're gonna have to deal with symptoms. Because no matter what, when you're at equilibrium, you're like, okay, I'm not dying, I'm not reproducing. I'm just sitting here, I'm great. But as soon as you feel a symptom, like I had, like, I was blowing my nose, and I was coughing. You heard me cough earlier, because I was outside earlier. Well, that was a very tiny evolution. Would you call it an evolution? Oh, she's just coughing. That's an evolution. That's the body getting rid of. That's the body getting rid of the energy that it doesn't need. That's a tiny low level entropy, very tiny low level. But my body's able to restore any energy that I used up with the fuel in my body, because I have enough to regenerate when I have to go in. So whenever I make movements, my body's able to restore the energy that's being used through my movements. And that's the whole thing of understanding jelly juice and trying to get to a point of equilibrium. When you're gaining weight because you're underweight, you will be in negentropy. And then when you're losing weight because you're overweight, that is entropy. But then when you're aging and you have all these different diseases, that's entropy. And then when you're dealing with the same diseases, but you now sealed your gut and you're regenerating and you apply the right chemistry, then that's in negentropy. So it's all has to do with what was triggering your lack of equilibrium. But either way, it's still a type of entropy fast negentropy. But the end result is determining whether it was really negentropy or entropy, and that over time you'll see it in people. How do I know if I'm inducing entropy? Because you're aging. Look, you have great. Someone asked me that yesterday. One of my neighbors, he came over, was chatting with my husband, and I was out there chatting with him too, and telling about the book stuff and whatever. And he's getting back. Hopefully, he's getting back on the JJ's. But he's like, well, how do I know I'm inducing entropy? Because you're aging. You're degrading. You have gray hair. You look. I mean, not to be like offending you purposely, but yeah, when you're aging and degrading and you have cancer disease and chronic illness, that is the body losing its life force. And then you have glitches. So thank God for Erwin Schrödinger. Thank God. Thank God I didn't look up syntropy. Thank God I understood there was another word. But I knew way back a couple years ago when I was working with Rob Butcher, I forget his last name, when he was helping me with my paper for the OAG, and then we had to part ways because we had a difference of where we're going to go in the future, which does happen, okay? But he has a J juice, so all's not lost. But, and I think I did mention, well, anyways, he did mention syntropy, and I never really got into that because I was too busy trying to figure other stuff out. But I'm glad I didn't remember that word, because that would have just been keeping me in that tunnel vision, that little rabbit hole. And I wouldn't have then explored negentropy, which has its, so syntropy, you'd have to really read a bunch of stuff to find out what the root word of syntropy, what the other word that syntropy was derived from. And that's the thing with all of science, is that you are getting layers and layers of strata of science, and you're not understanding the derivation of where some of the stuff is, so because it's been hidden through layers and layers of programming, people changing words to fit the context, to fit the intention, to fit where they're trying to tell you. And in a dictionary telling you that syntropy is when you have two diseases coalesce. Holy shit. People are like, what the fuck? I know humans. You look up a word and that's what, because the dictionary is the last and the greatest, but even dictionaries have their own context, type of programming. You gotta be careful of dictionaries too. What are they trying to convey? When they bring up the word disease, that is an adjective, that is a perception. Yeah, it's disease, but is it bad or is it good? People are going to have already an automatic listening, a preconceived notion, a knee-jerk reaction to the word disease, to the word pain, to the word cancer, to all these different trigger words. And then their blinders go up and they will have a attention span of a flea because they already think they know based upon what was told to them. So that's this shit that I'm up against is the fact of how programmed my audience is. Not everybody, but a lot of my audience is very programmed into thinking that they just need to die someday. So, yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the internet. I tell you, Google is. I will not go to DuckAgogo. I will not use any other search engine except for Google. The facts are out there. The truth is everywhere, but the facts are out there. And you have to have the best search engine in the world to bring up the facts. Because even mainstream media, they don't want you guys to die outright. Okay? So they're going to give you a combination of facts and truths, and you have to learn how to differentiate between the two. And if you cannot, you will forever be living in the truth, but never really exploring the facts. And that will be some people's undoing. And it already is. People are freaking out over stupid shit. So anyways, I'm going to go do my thing. But yeah, negentropy. Now I'm going to go write some stuff about this because I have to, it's like, holy crap. You know, this reminds me of just doing a book report or doing some kind of research paper for a class. But I really want people to understand this, so I'm willing to just do what I have to do. But yeah, I'm already at 135 pages. It's going to be a pretty hefty book. It really is. And then I might be modifying the evolution. I don't know. I have to pay for that, so I'll see. But this book right now that I'm writing right now is going to hold everything. It's going to hold the two factions, the Illuminati and the Catholic Church, and it's going to then explain the programming, the brainwashing through the English language, through and then how it manifests in all these social justice type stuff, and bring in COVID somewhere and the riots, and just what I've been experiencing in 2020, and then also my journey too somewhere, my background, my journey, and definitely then the projection of where I think humanity is going to be heading if we do get balance. But with 500 million people, which is the Georgia Guidestones, when you have 500 million people, that's a lot of people. That's still a lot of people. That's like, you know, you have 1 billion people in China, so that's like half of China. That's the world, would be half of China. That's where we're headed to, is, you know, as far as the New World Order. Okay? We're at, what, 6 billion, 7 billion people, and the aim is to have 500 million. Even with 500 million and you scatter them across the globe, well, yeah, you're going to have people who are doing the jilly juice to understand how to maintain and drive order through negentropy. People are going to have to go through their evolution. They're going to have to feel the pain. And yeah, they're not going to be reproducing at the macro level, but they'll be reproducing at the micro level, which is basically autonomous agent. There'll be an autonomous agent going through their work cycles. I got to get used to this terminology. And then biotech is going to have to be around in case somebody does die because of a freak accident, not because of natural causes. 'Cause you'll be living from natural causes, not dying from natural causes. But if someone happens to pass away because of an accident that was just unforeseen, a freak accident, then they're going to have to go in and create a child in a test tube. Because for a human to create a child, there's got to be some kind of anomaly. There's got to be distress in the body for a human to drop insurance policies. So a person who has finally reversed the aging process and they're not dropping seeds, for them to be, okay, I'm going to be now what, a brood mare. They might even have in the future, down the road, when you have 500 million people, they might have brood mares that will that will be only used to reproduce humans, to then be put in specific places where they're fed the J juice and maintaining their autonomy. I could see this is like a fucking science fiction movie, you know? Someone should be writing a script. I should write a script and give it to Hollywood. But someone probably actively is at some point. But at this point right now, it's probably too early to say, because we're still only 5 years into this. You know, 4 years, 2016 to 2020. That's not a long time. That really isn't. Okay, so A lot of you have a lot of work ahead of you. But yes, John. So if you don't endure the symptoms, we cannot reach equilibrium. Yeah, you got to endure them. And then what happens, John, is that if there's a new virus in the environment, you're going to have a negentropy again, an evolution. Okay, because the energy it takes to evolve, you better have enough energy stored. For a person to be able to make money, they have to have money to make money. You can't make money with not having money. You got to have some kind of investment, even if it's like $5. It's not going to give you a whole lot of return unless you happen. Yeah, this is relative to what you think a whole lot of return is. That's all perception. But anytime energy gets converted, it uses up energy. So that's why cancer is so deadly to people. Some people don't have enough energy to evolve, and so the cancer cannibalizes them. That's the easy way to put it, and that's thermodynamics. That is thermodynamics. Is how to utilize energy effectively, and entropy is the misutilization of energy, and negentropy is finally utilizing energy to its benefit. But then there's also imbalances when you have so much energy being utilized and it's not releasing properly. It's not a proper level of entropy. So you have to have a level of negentropy and entropy very like balanced. And if you have so much energy that's then capitalizing on the energy you have and you're taking more energy than you're able to regenerate, that's cancer. See, it's all balanced. That's all. That's why you can never get absolutes out of the holistic allopathic. They're like, oh, no absolutes. You can't guarantee this. Of course you can, because you're dealing with people who are in different states of flux of negentropy and entropy. There's no way to guarantee anyone something that they want guaranteed. And that's the same thing with mid-jilly juice. I can't guarantee that you're going to regrow shit. I can't guarantee you're going to reverse your crap, because you could be actively taking things that are causing more entropy and you are not actively triggering negentropy, and so then you're not going to see the benefits because you're too busy taking all your drugs. You're too busy out there protesting and utilizing your energy in a wasteful way, and so you're going to be like your predecessors, aging, degrading. You're getting shit scooped out of your body. You're getting things cut out of your body. You're taking all your chemotherapy and your cannabis. You are actively contributing to your own entropy more than you're able to retain and convert. And that is the aging process. And then you have all the propaganda in politics, religion, and science that promote it and perpetuate it and make it seem like it's okay. It's okay to die. It's okay. Physics is going to be, and thermodynamics is going to be your go-to for those of you that want to reach people who are very, very technical. And then if you're able to create a story around this, which I'm attempting to do too, I'm able to reach people who are more of the bigger picture, the idealists. Okay? So I've got to be able to cater to both sides of the brain functions, because the reality is I'm dealing with people who are left-brained and right-brained, and I have to be able to cater to both sides, which means I got to know both sides. And so I'm working on that. That's one of my challenges that I'm going to be dealing with. All right, you guys have a good day. Happy Sunday, and try not to be too disappointed in all the turn of events. But I knew that they were going to say something. Either it would be Friday, and I was surprised they didn't announce the whatever it was on Friday, but they waited till Saturday, and that's when people are like, oh yeah. So luckily we have celebrations versus riots, but hey, if you don't know really the difference between the two, and you don't have like a judgment, and a person who just had like no like background on the people gathering like in New York and San Francisco last night when people are out there celebrating would be no different than those that were rioting, because it's just a group of people who are emotional, that are easily triggered into emotion. And so it's kind of like, it's interesting. So be careful of those that trigger you into an extreme emotion: anger, sadness, depression, happiness. When you don't react, then you're able to look at things logically, but you have to be able to change your biochemistry simultaneously, and it takes a minute to get there. So that's why you gotta stay on the J juice. I can't speak to anyone really on the level of logic unless you've done J juice on some level and you're able to dispense with your emotions. If you're all emotional and laughing or happy or sad or or angry or adrenaline or bitter or all of that, you need to drink more J juice. I can't relate to you because you're working from emotion, and that's manipulation material. All right, bye. Oh, and loving too. You're all loving, loving. That's the manipulation. Do more J.